Okay guys, so we are going to go back and review division. So first we need to know what the parts of a division problem represent. So this number here on the side, this 5, represents our divisor. This is what we're dividing by. This is our divisor. And inside, our big number always represents the dividend. Whoops. And when we get an answer, which we are not going to do yet, when we get an answer for a division problem, it's called a quotient. Okay, so now that we know the parts of a division problem, let's review some keywords. So anyone remember keywords from division? Well, equal usually tells us to divide, separate, equal groups, same, and there's plenty more, but those are the main ones that we need to know. So now let's talk about the steps and strategies that we learned to solve division problems. So we had this short way to learn what the steps were, and hopefully you guys remember. The steps were D, M, S, B. And I hope you remember what those stand for. So the D is our divide. Our M stands for multiply. Our S stands for subtract. And our B stands for either bring down or bring over, depending on which strategy you choose. I'm just going to write bring over since most of you use our area model for division. So these are our 4 steps: divide, multiply, subtract, bring over. Or you guys remember it as, does McDonald's sell burgers? So we're going to use these steps as we go through our strategies. And we learned 2 different strategies. One was area model. That's the one that looks like the box, and we separated it out into however many digits. And then we also learned the standard algorithm, and that's when you put your number in the house. So I'm going to show you both ways, and you are welcome to use whichever way works best for you. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over, and I'm going to start with area model first. So I'm going to take a 4-digit number, and I'm going to use 1,335 as my dividend, and I'm going to divide it by 5. And I am trying to get my quotient. So I'm going to set up my area model. Well, my dividend has how many digits? 4. So that means that my area model also needs to have 4 boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4 for my thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones. So let's go ahead and set up our area model before we get started. So our divisor always goes on the outside, and our dividend is what we put into our boxes. And 1 digit goes in each box. So we also need to write our steps. That way we do not forget them. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring over. So I'm going to start by asking myself first, how many times can 5 fit into 1? Well, does 5 times anything give me 1? No, and that is because 5 is bigger than 1, so it cannot fit in. So I'm going to put a 0 on top. So I just divided, and now I'm going to multiply. And I multiply 5 times 0, which gives me 0. My next step is to subtract. I'm going to subtract those two. If my pen will draw, there we go. 1 minus 0 gives me 1. And my next step is to bring over. So I'm going to bring that 1 over to the next box. And guess what? My steps start all over again. And I ask myself, how many times can 5 fit into 13? Well, I know that 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. So it can fit 2 times so far. 5 times 3 is 15. And we just busted. Remember that we can't go over. So it can only fit in 2 times without going over. So I just divided. And now I'm going to multiply. 5 times 2 gives me 10. My next step is to subtract. 13 minus 10 gives me 3. And my next step would be to bring that 3 over. And it starts all over again. I'm going to go a little bit faster now. How many times can 5 fit into 33? Well, if I know my facts, I know 5 times 6 is 30. That's really close to 33. But let's try one more. 5 times 7 would give me 35. That's too much. So it can only fit 6 times. So there's my division. Now I'm going to multiply. 5 times 6 is 30. My next step is to subtract. 33 minus 30 gives me 3. My next step is to bring that 3 over. And now I start again. And I ask myself, how many times can 5 fit into 35? Well, I know that it can fit 7 times. My next step is to multiply. 5 times 7 is 35. My next step is to subtract. 35 minus 35 gives me 0. And I hit 0 down at the bottom, so I do not have anything left to bring over. So if you do not have a remainder in your problem, you should hit 0 in your last box. If not, something may have gone wrong. So we have found our quotient for 1,335 divided by 5. Our quotient is 267. So this is our area model. And this is what most of you use when you're solving a division problem. But some of you did the standard algorithm that we learned as well. So I'm going to show you the same problem. So 1,335 divided by 5. But this time I'm going to use the standard algorithm, and that's the one that uses the house. So I put my dividend inside of the house, and my divisor goes outside. Remember that when we do different strategies with the same problem, doesn't mean that we get a different answer. So we should still get that same answer for this problem. We are just doing a different strategy to solve it. So again, I'm still following the same steps. Divide, multiply, subtract. Instead of bring over, it's going to represent bring down. So let's get started. So my first step is to divide. Can 5 fit into 1? Like we said, it cannot. So I put my 0. My next step is going to be to multiply. 5 times 0 is 0. My next step is to subtract those. 1 minus 0 is 1. And my next step is to bring down. And remember that you can only bring down one number at a time. Okay, and now my steps start over again. How many times can 5 fit into 13? So here's my division step. Well, I know 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3 is 15. That's too much. So it can only fit in 2 times without going over. My next step is to multiply. 5 times 2 is 10. My next step is to subtract. 13 minus 10 is 3. My next step is to bring down. So I'm going to bring down this next 3 all the way down. Start all over again. How many times can 5 fit into 33? Well, I know 5 times 6 is 30, and 5 times 7 would give me 35, which is again too much. So it can only fit 6 times. And now I'm going to multiply. 5 times 6 is 30. Subtract, I'm running out of room here. Now I'm doing my subtraction step. 33 minus 30 is 3. And my last step is to bring down. So I have one more number to bring down. My 5 comes all the way down, and then I start again. How many times can 5 fit into 35? Here's my division. 7 times. Now I'm going to multiply. 5 times 7 is 35. I'm going to subtract those, and I get 0. And if you get 0, then you did it correctly, unless this is a remainder problem, but we're going to start off with numbers that divide equally into each other. So since I do not have anything left to bring down, I brought down all my numbers, I hit 0 at the bottom, I am complete. And our quotient, our answer, should be at the top of our house. And what is our quotient? 267, which is the same thing that we got the first time with area model, which is exactly how it should go. So whatever strategy you choose to pick, we should all be getting the same answers, but feel free to pick area model if you're more comfortable with that, or feel free to pick standard algorithm if you would prefer to do standard. So totally up to you guys. Good luck on your assignment. Let me know if you have any questions.